Astute, eagle-eyed viewer, I know what you're thinking. You clicked on the title of this video and you thought, what? Yeah. You're probably thinking, what do Epstein and Israel have to do with nuclear destruction? And I have to say, probably nothing. But I can see a possibility in a world where, going forward, because of the conflicts in the Middle East, Iran partners with China and leads to essentially what happens in Fallout, which was more or less the joke in the title. So if you're not a giant nerd and you don't know what Fallout is, Fallout's a video game and a TV series. And it's one of my favorite games to not play. I enjoy the lore of Fallout. I don't really care for the gameplay. There's a handful of games that I love the lore of them. God of War, for example. Gameplay's terrible. My wife loves to play God of War. I hate playing God of War because it is just not my style of gameplay. Same thing with Fallout. I just can't get into it. You know, I know it's just future Skyrim, but it doesn't play the same. I don't know. To be fair, I've only tried to play 76. I tried to play New Vegas, and I got I had to walk across the map, and I was like, man, fuck that. So I really didn't give New Vegas a try. 76, I played for a couple hours, and I was like, this is kind of terrible. And then I had to do a quest, and immediately got curb stomped to death like 37 times. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty terrible. So that being said, it's a game. There's a TV series. And to make a long story short, the lore of it is a futuristic nuclear wasteland. The fallout has caused all kinds of mutations in the plant life. There was a government chemical that caused mutations in livestock. Everything is a mutated nightmare. There's mutated monster creature things that were people at one point. There's all kinds of stuffs and things that are they're just irradiated monsters, mutated monsters, and obviously what caused the radiation and the mutations is the bombs that were dropped. The bombs were dropped. We don't know who dropped the first bombs. It's believed it was China. So that's a possibility. The reason it's believed it's China is in the lore. China invades Alaska to gain control over a pipeline, oil pipeline. They gain control over the oil pipeline. America fights China in Alaska. Canadians get upset because the fighting moves into Canada. America and Canada are beefing. China and Canada are kind of beefing. The Canadians are like, leave us alone, eh? We don't know what this is about. The Americans are like, fuck off, Canada. We'll deal with you later. Little America, which pisses them off, and they start rioting, which is reminiscent of Trump calling Canada the 51st state. And I see a lot of parallels. And I see a lot of, hey, this is possible, and hey, that is possible. I see a lot of things that are similar. There's a war in the Middle East that breaks out with China's involvement. I could see a war in the Middle East breaking out with China's involvement. I believe the war in the Middle East is against China. In Fallout, I think China would be involved on behalf of the Middle East in reality. I could see the Iran-Israel conflict leading to a conflict with the United States and China that could potentially last decades. And finally, The bombs fall in 2077. It's the lore is there's a Chinese nuclear armed sub off the Pacific coast. Unmarked stealth bombers fly over the United States and drop the first bombs, and then the nukes are launched from the submarine, as it's believed. That's about it. The president then declares mutually assured destruction and says, "If we can't have it, nobody can. Destroy all of you." And the bombs launch, and that's it. Curtains. There's a lot more to it because obviously there's a game, right, that takes place after the fact. And so there's vaults that a lot of people go survive in. That's where your character comes in. Your character in each game is a vault dweller from different parts of the country. There's Vegas. I think there's one in California. I think there's Fallout 76 is in like West Virginia or something like that. It's vague. It's just Appalachia, which is very vague. West Virginia, North Carolina, something like that. There's one that's in DC. It might be in 76. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But yeah, so you have these games where the bombs fall, you emerge from the vault, and you got to start figuring things out to rebuild society. Now, in New Vegas, there's warring factions, and it's your job to bring peace to the wasteland. You're the chosen one, I guess. I think actually in that one, I don't think you come out of a vault. I think you're just a mail carrier or something like that. I don't know, there's one where you're just a mail carrier. Some of them you come out of a vault. Some of them you have existed in this world and you're just taken over at this point. And it's just kind of an interesting look at the world. You explore this wasteland after these bombs have fallen, and it's unclear really why the bombs fell, one specific reason the bombs fell. It's unclear who launched the bombs, and it doesn't matter. When I first played Fallout, I didn't know who launched the bombs. I didn't know who was involved with the conflicts. And I think the first time I played Fallout, it immersed me into someone who, because the gameplay takes place in like 2177 or whatever, like 100 years later, 200 years later, whatever. It takes place after the radiation has died off and civilizations have started to rebuild. So I felt very, like, obviously I knew bombs fell, I knew nukes were dropped, but I felt very dropped into that world. I didn't know the lore. I didn't know what happened. I didn't know why. I just knew that it happened. I just knew that, yes, bombs were dropped and everything was destroyed. I knew that there was some water I couldn't drink because I would die. I knew that there were some animals I couldn't eat because I would die. And that was about the extent of it. And I knew that obviously there was some sort of conflict. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been bombs dropped that destroyed civilization. And I felt like that immersed me into the gameplay. But as I learned more about the lore, and then I look at what's going on now, I'm like, I could totally see how this lore is feasible. This is a lore that was written in the 90s when the first Fallout games came out. This isn't something that was written in 2022. This is something that was written in 90, 95, 99, something like that. Like, this is a lore that was started long ago. And now to see it coming to almost a reality. And I say Epstein and Isreal will lead to nuclear destruction. Do I think the U.S. involvement in Iran is to take the limelight off Epstein? Probably a little bit, yeah. I mean, I don't think that's the sole reason. I think it's just a byproduct. So when I say Epstein and Isreal, yeah, I'm thinking that's probably, Epstein is a byproduct. Isreal is the main issue here. But I do wonder how far away from something very similar are we? Like, I don't think it's I don't think it's unreasonable to say, hey, there could be a situation where bombs drop and things get wiped out and it is a nightmare scenario. I don't think it's improbable. I think China has nukes. I think there's a lot of countries that have nukes. And if they got involved in the Middle East, I think there's a lot of countries that would definitely want to do something about America's. I mean, we have tons of oil in Alaska. We have the ability to self-sustain in a shit hit the fan kind of situation. So yeah, I think a lot of countries would want to take us out because we have that ability. No, you can't get strawberries all year round, but you can get food. We grow so much corn in this country. Let me tell you, I drive Ohio, Indiana, all the neighboring states, and I cannot go into another state and not see corn. Okay, every state I go into has cornfields. We grow so much corn in this country. Yeah, it's not great eating, but we can feed our population. We grow so much corn. So much corn. It is insane how much corn we grow. Meat wouldn't be a problem. We have so many cattle. We have so many cattle farms. But I mean, the size of our cornfields is. I've driven past the same cornfield for an hour. Like, our cornfields are ginormous in this country. Like, other countries don't understand the scale of America. The British are like, well, yeah, I mean, it's a 45-minute drive from one end of the country to the other. What do you mean it's an 8-hour drive to fucking Disneyland? It's like, yeah, it's 3 days to get there for me. And they're like, what? It's like 4 hours across and back down. It's like a day trip to go across the UK. And it's like, I might be wrong there. It might be longer than that, but it's 4 hours to get from Youngstown, Ohio to fucking Indiana. Like, it's 4 hours to get from Youngstown, Ohio to Michigan. It's 4 hours to get to another state. When these other countries see the scale, we could totally self-suffice in a fallout type situation. Now, do I think we should be worried about it? No, because there ain't shit you can do. If it happens, there ain't shit you can do. And if there is shit you can do, ain't shit you want to do. You don't want to survive that. If it comes to that, you don't want to survive. You get to survive and watch everyone you know die. Watch everyone that you've ever cared about is either going to be vaporized immediately, turned into dust, or you're going to watch them die of radiation poisoning. Your wife, your children. No, that's not a world you want to live in. Trust me. Well, I don't. I say trust me, like I've done it. Like, well, I guess kind of, yeah, I have. But no, your friends, your wife, your children, or your husband, whatever. I'm speaking from my perspective. Um, your brothers, your sisters, your mom, your dad, they're either immediately vaporized or they slowly die of radiation poisoning. And you watch that happen. It's not something I want to survive, that's for sure. Unless I was able to have a fallout shelter that was stocked, that I could survive for a long period of time. But I don't know how long radiation sticks around. If an area is irradiated, I don't know how long it stays irradiated. Let's find out. How long does radiation last after a nuke? Radiation levels after a nuclear explosion decrease rapidly due to radioactive decay following the 7 to 10 rule. where the dose rate drops by a factor of 10 for every sevenfold increase in time. Within 7 hours, radiation is about 10% the 1 hour level. After 48 to 72 hours, it falls to roughly 1% of the initial intensity, making short, necessary exits possible. After 2 weeks, radiation levels generally reach tolerable level though short-term survival requires staying sheltered for a minimum of 72 hours and ideally 14 days or more to avoid exposure. However, long-term contamination persists due to specific isotopes. Iodine 131 dominates the first few weeks but decays quickly. Celsium and strontium 90 have half-lives of approximately 30 years, remaining hazardous for decades. High-level waste or specific ground-burst areas can leave areas uninhabitable for 6 to 18 months or longer, depending on the weapon type and distance from the epicenter. So you're looking 2 weeks to 2 years, depending on what, where, and how. I mean, you're looking 2 weeks to 2 years before you can go out and about. And at that, there's still going to be things that are irradiated. You're going to need a Geiger counter to figure out where you can and can't go. I mean, if you know, okay, I know roughly where Washington, D.C. is. And if I know for sure that New York and D.C. got hit, nothing in the center of the country got hit, California got hit. I'm gonna, okay, well, I know that I can go at least towards the center of the country. I can go west. And no, I'm not a desert survivalist, but I could try to make a go of it in the desert. The hardest thing for me would be finding water because I don't know how the desert works. As far as I'm concerned, that shit's just a sponge and it just absorbs all the water. The survival aspect of it is most people live in the suburbs. And the thing is, the biggest bombs aren't as powerful as you think. There's a map that Tim Pool uses. Let me see if I can find it. He's used it a few times, and it is interesting to say the least. Nuke map. Is that what it's called? Yeah, so this is it. There's a way to play with it. Here it is. Scary interactive map shows what happens if a nuke explodes in your neighborhood. Oh, it is called Nuke Map. Now there's yeah, Nuke Map. Oh, there we go. Oh, cool. So this is Pittsburgh. So I live like in this area. So where's DC at? Washington. Do I have to move the pin myself? Yeah. Okay, so we'll put it in Washington, D.C. And we'll just say they're going for... Oh. Wow, that's... the warhead. We'll pick the biggest one, 100 megaton. So you can see, when we zoom out, it's a relatively tiny area that's affected. It barely touches Pennsylvania. It's when we get, the whole eastern seaboard gets touched. That's when there's a problem. Even if we added 3 zeros. Oh, it can't take more than 100,000 megatons. So 100,000 megatons is the biggest it'll do. And you can see, we can put this. I mean, if we put it in Cleveland, yeah, I would just be wiped out. If we put it in New York City, but they wouldn't hit New York City, right? Because look at how much of it gets wasted in the ocean. They're going to hit Dallas. They're going to hit Maine. They're going to hit big cities. They're going to hit San Francisco, LA, San Diego. Oh, they might not hit San Diego because of its proximity to Mexico. Also, this is the biggest nuke that exists that we know of. Now, I know we have nuclear launch sites somewhere around here, so they're probably gonna do that. Let's go back to DC. And this is an airburst. Let's see if the surface. We'll have it show. Okay. So here's where the fallout would follow the wind up into Philadelphia. Okay, so probably going to lose most of Philadelphia, and you probably everything over here into New York is probably, this whole area is probably not the safest. Now, let's see. Thermal radius is 3rd degree burns. This green, I don't. Can you see it lighting up? Yeah, that green. That is likely fatal in about 1 month. Fireball radius, that's everything from there out is probably destroyed. Maximum size of the nuclear fireball, relevance to damage on the ground depends on the height of the detonation. If it touches the ground, the amount of radioactive fallout is significantly increased. Anything inside the fireball is immediately vaporized. Okay, so let's make it surface and detonate it. So surface is the worst. So you can see if they hit DC, they take out 2/3 of the fucking, maybe half of the eastern seaboard. And this is just the radiation, but I mean, heavy blast damage is this red ring. At 20 psi overpressure, heavily built concrete buildings are severely damaged or demolished. Moderate blast damage. At 5 psi overpressure, most residential buildings collapse. Injuries are universal. Fatalities are widespread. So there's still a lot of death here, and this isn't directly in Washington, D.C. If we move it to Washington, D.C., there we go. That's a little bit better. And then we have thermal radiation, where you're getting up to 3rd degree burns. But it's only a 31-mile radius. And then the fallout, 1 rad per hour, that drops off by 7%. Drops by a factor of 10 for every 7-fold increase in time. So within 7 hours, I think the only part I think this would be no longer irradiated. This would still be irradiated. Yeah, that would still be irradiated. And this is the biggest nuke that exists that we know of. So after 7 hours, basically Philadelphia to New York City is uninhabitable. Probably all the way up to Boston. If you drop this in... Oh, this is depending on how the wind goes. So if the wind's going right, I'm dead. I'm going to die quick. Wilmington, North Carolina. I mean, depending on how the wind blows. I don't know. I just looking at the blast radius though. Say they drop it in Kentucky and the fallout. I don't know how the wind blows in Kentucky. So if they drop it in Kentucky, they could take out a good chunk of Appalachia. If they dropped it in Atlanta and the wind blows right, they could potentially irradiate a bunch of Appalachia, but we don't grow anything here. It'd be smarter to drop it over here. I mean, Indiana is all cornfields. If they dropped a nuke in Memphis, it would take out a bunch of food. But my point is, they're able, and look, this is showing the largest bomb, 8,900 fatalities. If we go to the smallest bomb, I mean, look at this. This takes out a city. This takes out a block. Like, if they're dropping the smallest bombs, just put it in we'll just put it in Birmingham. And we'll see. It doesn't even take out Birmingham. Look, it doesn't even take out town square. It takes out like 12 blocks. So we'll put it directly on the Birmingham Art Museum. And it takes out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 streets. There is no fallout on the wind. It's just, if they dropped a bunch of small bombs, what's a reasonable? Here, Little Boy's what we dropped on Hiroshima. Little Boy would take out a good chunk of Birmingham. What about... Oh, here's Fat Man. What's Fat Man? 20 kilotons. Again, Birmingham. Do they say what China has? Here's a B-61. This is what we have. Okay, we're taking out Birmingham and the major surrounding metropolitan areas. What if we do, just for shits and giggles, Columbus, because I hate that city. So yeah, we're not even taking out the entirety of the Columbus area. These are all outskirts of Columbus. And that's with our current U.S. arsenal bomb. Oh, no, that's the largest. Still about the same amount of damage. I mean, we're taking out the surrounding areas of... Here's China's first deployed ICBM. China's current ICBM. Let's do that because we're talking about China. We're taking out Columbus. If we put it in Washington, I mean, we're taking out... Yeah, they'd have to drop so many of these, though, for the fallout thing to be a thing. But anyway, that's all I got. I just wanted to chat about that because it's definitely a possibility. So I don't know. That's all I got for you. I'll see y'all in the next one. Later, Dink.